we just came out and were much more aggressive on the defensive end. We were taking better shots. We were hitting more shots. We just looked like ourselves again. So, just to play like that, heading into Sunday is good for us, to get us ready for, St. Mary's.
Alex Caravan said you guys are roommates on the road and you put him to sleep at night telling him about the history of UConn.
Yeah.
What do you want to say to that?
Yeah, we always just talk about UConn and, in the past about all the national championships and, the legendary players that came through UConn. It's always fun talking basketball with him. He's very smart. It's a great roommate to have and, one of my best friends on the team. Of course.
Donovan, do you have a lot of family here today?
Yeah, I think I had about, 9-10 people here for my family. Just to see them, in the stands smiling after my first March Madness victory, just means a lot to me. I know they're happy, I know they're proud, but they'll be even more proud if we just keep winning.
How are you feeling in the room today before this game?
I was in the meal room this morning at 7:30, pacing, and then after shoot around, I went up to my room, tried to take like a 30-minute nap, and I never got to close my eyes. I was just waiting for this game, but. I just had to go out there, do what I do, and help my team get this victory.
You can visualize it all you want. Is tonight for you personally what you visualize more?
Definitely even more. Just when I was running out onto the court, for layup lines, just looking around, all the fans there, mixed teams, it's just. It just means a lot to me, But once that ball went up in the air, I was like, all right, I got a basketball game to play. It's just a regular game. We got to go out here and get this victory. It was the feeling in the locker room was we were all good. We all knew that there was still 20 minutes to play basketball. They played a great first half, and we didn't play the best defensive half. We knew we had to come out and be more aggressive. We only had 4 fouls in the first half. 11, 12 in the second. So just to come out and be the aggressor in the second half, make them call an early timeout, definitely helped us a lot. And, Jordan came up, after a rough first half and had 2 big threes and then 1 3. That's just something, that was a little lift that we needed for the second half.
How do you just turn that defensive switch on? Is it just change adjustments, or is it just more of a mindset?
It's more of a mindset. We were all in here like, this is not who we are. That's not who we are on the defensive end. We're not being aggressive enough. And, the energy just lifted in the locker room at halftime, and we were all amped up, ready to go, and sprinted out there on the floor, and just couldn't wait for that second half to just get started.
Do you see something in Adama's eye heading out to the second half?
Yeah, he at halftime he was like, so mad at him. That's what he does. He gets so mad down himself about how he's playing and stuff. So he was like, I got you this half, boys. Like I ain't gonna let you down, and he didn't.
Alex is talking about how you like to brag about UConn history, and you keep them up late at night. Is that something? Do you know when to shut it off, or do you talk them to sleep?
No, I know when to shut it off for sure. We both go to bed decently early, so we just talk about the UConn past and how they've won national championships. All the legendary players that came through here and won us games, and it's just cool to talk about, and just to realize that we're now in their position trying to compete for a national championship. It just means something to us.
How did it feel for you guys, the new guys, to get this NCAA win for Dan, for Adama, and for Andre? Really?
Yeah, besides Naheem, and there was no other players that really have been to the NCAA tournaments. Just to be able to get out this win for Coach Early, and everyone really, like the first NCAA March Madness win. It just means a lot to me and the staff, the fans. We just love it. It's everyone's dream to play here. Only 64 teams get in this tournament, so just to be able to move on to the round of 32 means a lot. But we're not done yet. We got to keep going.
Donovan, you and Adama both dominant inside the paint today, dominant on the boards. Is there an art to rebounding?
Yeah, just trying to find inside position on the offensive and defensive end to go up there, grab the ball, chin it, don't turn the ball over. It helps us out a lot when rebound the ball. That's just one thing Coach emphasized throughout the week is like they don't have the tallest centers, so we got to dominate on the backboard, and we did that tonight.
When you and Adama are both on the floor together, how would you describe your dynamic?
It's two big dudes. He could score the ball very well in the post. I see myself as a decent passer. Just helping we both help our team in so many ways that helps us get the victory. It's just I've learned so much from him throughout this whole year, and he's learned so much. Me defending him. Because I'm 7'2", so just battling with him and playing with him is just a blessing, really.